Good afternoon, everyone. It's 3:04 p.m. It's Thursday, January 16th, 2025. This is the regular meeting of the Recycled Water Committee of Monterey One Water. And I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Veranda,
Here.
Castroville, Marina Coast,
Here.
Monterey,
Here.
Pacific Grove.
Here. That'll take us to item 3, additions to the agenda. Does anyone have additions to the agenda from staff or the committee?
No
Yes.
amendments.
Thank you. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the agenda as to item 4.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, I will go ahead. That'll pass unanimously, and we'll move on to general public comment. Item 5, anyone wishing to address the committee on matters not appearing on the agenda within the subject matter jurisdiction of the agency may do so now. And I see a couple members of the public, or a couple folks from the public out there. Would anyone wishing to speak? And anyone online wishing to speak? Seen many public members there. I don't think any. Okay, we'll go ahead and go to item 6, and we'll consider approval of our previous minutes. Do I have a motion on that?
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment on online wishing to speak about our previous Recycled Water Committee minutes? Seeing none, I'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Move on to item 7, and let me just get to my page here. And I will welcome Mr. Guzman to give the staff report.
Good afternoon, Chairman Smith and members of the committee. I'm Jose Guzman, the operations manager. Monterey One Water's advanced water purification facility utilizes liquid oxygen to produce ozone to oxidize secondary effluent prior to microfiltration to help prevent fouling and extend the life of the elements. On March 29th, 2021, the board approved the award for a liquid oxygen contract to Airgas for a not to exceed cost of $279,457.50 for the supply and delivery of liquid oxygen to AWPF. The term of the agreement was for 2 years and allowed M1W the option in its sole discretion to extend the agreement for 3 additional 1-year terms, not to exceed 5% increase in cost for each extension. Staff would like to extend the contract for the 3rd and final extension, which will end March 15th, 2026, with a 5% increase in the cost. The cost per gallon is 95 cents, up from 91 cents as compared to the second extension. Staff asks that the Recycle Water Committee recommend that the board approve a 3rd and final amendment to the Airgas for the liquid oxygen contract for the advanced water purification facility in the not to exceed amount of $311,362.50. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the report. Any committee member questions? Colonel Moore or Director Moore?
Whatever. Just don't call me late for lunch. So this is the final year. So this would be the 5th year.
Yeah, it'll be the 3rd extension. Yes, it'll be the 5th year.
So when are you thinking about going out beyond? Presume we're going to go back out to bid?
It'll have to go out back to bid, and we'll probably start that process 3 months ahead of the expiration of this, so towards the end of this calendar year.
So the only thing I would say is I'm hearing that there is a fair amount of unpredictability with respect to what's going to happen to pricing of various things with a new administration coming in. So I would urge you to think about whether or not you want to go out to bid much earlier to see if you can beat, if you think there are going to be any deleterious impacts on our costs in this area. I would urge you to think about whether to do that bidding earlier or not. And I leave that up to staff. I'm certainly not an economist and I don't know how to predict those things, but fingers crossed you all are better at that. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, I'll take it out to the public. Comment on item 7. Anybody online? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the board for action on item 7.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, passes 4-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Guzman, and we'll welcome you back on item 8.
Right, thank you. So as part of the Salinas Valley Reclamation Project, that facility uses coagulation, flocculation, and filtration through multimedia filters for tertiary treatment. Chlorine is used for the final disinfection prior to discharge into the 31 million gallon storage pond before being distributed to the CSIP distribution system. The liquefied chlorine contract was put out to bid on December 11th, 2024. Only one bid was received from Thatcher Company, who is the incumbent, and the price per pound of $1.25 is up slightly from the current price of $1.23 per pound for a total of $1,061,625. This cost is included in the approved fiscal year 25 budget and will be included in the fiscal year 26 budget. These funds are recovered through our service agreement with the Water Resources Agency. The term of the agreement is for 1 year with 2 one-year extensions. Staff asks that the Recycle Water Committee recommend that the board approve a chemical contract to Thatcher Company for liquefied chlorine for the Salinas Valley Reclamation Project in a not to exceed amount of $1,061,625. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any committee questions? Director Moore?
So this is a question really just for the edification of the public, which knows or has heard that chlorine is a very dangerous chemical. Roughly how many gallons of liquid chlorine do we use and purchase a year for the Salinas Valley Reclamation Project?
So we actually purchase or procure the chemical in tonners.
Okay.
So we receive, on average, it's 12 to 14 tons of chlorine per delivery. During peak irrigation season, we average close to 2 deliveries a week. It may be 2 a week and then the following week 1. At any given time, if everything aligns properly at our chlorination facility, we may have up to 26 tons of liquid chlorine on site.
And so this is a lot of gallons of chlorine that go
Yes.
into disinfecting the water that we send to essentially CSIP that the growers use. Could you just review for the public? We're putting all these gallons of chlorine into this water. What happens to that chlorine? And why can we assure the public that we aren't just pouring raw chlorine all over crops that they're going to be eating in their bagged salad?
Yeah, right. So a lot of it is consumed or kind of, we say the term we use is it's burned up during the disinfection process. So we use around 4,500 pounds of chlorine per day to treat not only the Salinas SVRP, but also the Salinas River facilities water. By the time it reaches the contact basin, the end of the contact basin, it goes in at about 15 parts per million. By the time it leaves the basins, it's around 10. By the time it leaves the pond to go into irrigation, we're down to about 4 to 5. And by the time it gets to growers, it's at about 3 parts per million. So really it's akin to pool water, like what you would have in a public pool or a pool at your home. It's chloramine disinfection, so it doesn't harm the crops. And a lot of it through UV is destroyed as it's being applied and it evaporates. So it's not getting into the tissues and, crossing that barrier.
So a lot of it evaporates as it's sprayed or put onto the
Right.
crops when it's exposed to the atmosphere. I'm sure some of it evaporates in the pond. But you said some of it's burned up. Does that happen even in the pipes?
It could if there's any kind of remaining constituents to disinfect. But a lot of irrigators now have converted to drip irrigation, so it's less likely to get directly on the crop. It goes more directly on the roots and the soil. I would guess it's over 50% now because spray irrigation just introduces other complications for them as far as meeting their leafy greens management.
And actually, if you spray, you're aerating, obviously,
Right.
and not dissolving, but disturbing more of the
Right.
chlorine within the water, therefore off-gassing. So probably even less than that 4 parts per million in those circumstances.
Right.
And obviously, the primary place where it goes to work is in the disinfection process after the prior stage of treatment. Is it true that chlorine's a pretty aggressive compound? So for instance, any other stuff that's in there that might contain sodium probably gets turned into, what do they call that? Sodium chloride?
Yeah, it's a strong oxidizer. And for sodium in particular, the reason we don't use like sodium hypochlorite is because the growers are concerned with the salts. So it's like 99.5% pure chlorine. It's pretty high in the purity standard.
But biological organisms that might have made it through the treatment
Yes, it's a very strong
processes
oxidizer. It destroys the cell wall, and that's how it inactivates pathogens.
and makes other more harmless chemicals like, say, sodium chloride, which I think is
And it-
commonly called what, table salt?
Yeah, and disinfection byproducts are also limited with using hypo compared to other disinfection processes.
Okay, thank you very much.
One of the things I'd like to add is most all water utilities also use chlorine in their system, and the regulatory requirement is 2 parts per million at the farthest reach of their system.
In order to make sure that everything is completely disinfected to the very end of your furthest user. Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Habino.
Jose, I just had a question on supply chain. I know we had talked about that last year and I'm surprised that only one company came back with a
Yeah. I can't
how's
say.
how's that looking?
Yeah, I can't say I'm that surprised. The Turner business isn't as popular and it's also very labor intensive. And there's a lot of factors that really impact the price and cost of delivering and manufacturing of the chemical. And they have to absorb a lot of the cost from the supplier. So we're hoping in the future when we go back out again, there'll be a little more interest, but we did reach out to several potential bidders, but there isn't a whole lot in the state that do this.
Yeah, aren't there like only 2 around that do the tonners? I mean, if you want smaller quantities, certainly, like, we can all go by some level of chlorine, but in the tonners, I thought there was 2 in California that access and even from other states.
Yeah, there isn't a whole lot. I think it's just 2. And Thatcher, I believe, is the closest to us. So logistically, it made more sense for them. I don't think it would have panned out for someone else.
Wasn't Univar the other one that we were using? No?
We've used, no, who?
Univar was other chemicals. We
Other
have contracts with
chemicals,
them,
yeah.
but we didn't do chlorine. We did.
Sierra was a
Yeah.
supplier, but they sold to Thatcher. And then it was one more that just not coming to mind. Olin was another one. And Olin's actually one of the bigger players in the industry as far as producing chlorine. They just did away with their tonner section.
And then one more question. Have you guys inquired about maybe using chlorine dioxide? Is that a cheaper route or is it no more expensive?
Yeah, chlorine is the more affordable.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've even kicked around ideas of, as we look towards the future of SVRP, UV or other treatment trains that would accomplish disinfection like we do at an advanced water purification facility. But the cost goes up significantly as far as energy, maintenance, personnel to do preventative maintenance. So it's a tried and true system, unfortunately. But the good thing is that every year we take this system down and do the maintenance. So as long as the supply chain is there, it's a reliable process. The good thing, Thatcher, we are one of their larger customers, so they're very responsive to our needs, and we try and kind of predict out our orders 2, 3 in advance. So if they do run into, a short on the drivers, we're able to move a delivery out another day or two, or take less and, allow them to do multiple deliveries. So I think they've been very responsive to our needs, and for the last 3, 4 years that we've had them, we've never had an issue where we didn't have chlorine to produce tertiary water.
And if I may, Kent, we actually last year when we were back in DC with our lobbyists, we met with a number of obviously legislators and EPA and so on. One person we met with is the executive director of NACWA, National Association of Clean Water Agencies, and broached this subject going, NACWA is the professional association for all wastewater treatment plants throughout the country. Like, are you hearing this from your members? That when you need tonners, that it's just the prices increased during the pandemic, but haven't necessarily come down. Is there, whether it be supply chain or any other issue out there that's affecting the preponderance of treatment plants out there, can they help? Can they do anything from a lobbying perspective? So I haven't heard anything back from Adam. I don't know if you have, but it's on their radar at least. If we can somehow influence in a different way to get more players in the market.
Director Williamson.
This is a conversation that's being talked about in regards to chlorine in water. And so you were kind of speaking to other processes and how the implications associated with them. Are there processes that don't include chlorine that are better in regards to it from a health aspect? And if so, what are the implications of that as far as cost and maintenance?
Well, I think the biggest one would be the capital investment and us having to coordinate that with the Monterey County Water Resources Agency. Because in the end, the direction that the facility goes, we can make suggestions and recommendations, but they're the ones with the checkbook. So we would have to work with them on making those improvements. So it could be a significant capital improvement. As far as health, I don't think there's a concern with the way we disinfect now having any adverse effects.
No, but like you mentioned, Jose, I mean, you could go to UV. That's a costly endeavor.
Right.
And then you're without a chlorine residual. So there's a potential health impact there when you need to have that residual for our Title 22 regs. I guess it could be a combination of UV and chlorine. So UV is taking care of much of the pathogens, but you have a lesser dosage of chlorine to make sure you have the residual at the end of the pipe.
Yeah, it's similar
But
to what we do at the AWPF now.
It's costly.
Yeah, we go through UV and you would be changing chlorine for peroxide, which is expensive too. So
Thank you.
All right, we'll go ahead and take it out to the public, just to check to see if anyone has any comment. Online, item 8, and I saw it.
Not a problem.
And bring it back to the board for discussion. Director Moore.
So although in 1970, I worked for a time for the world's largest manufacturer of carbon black, that is a commodity, but I know nothing about the manufacture of liquefied chlorine as a commodity. So I don't know anything about the economics, but I would expect as the market shrinks, prices are likely to go up because there's less competition. Do we know what sort of price point chlorine would have to get to make it in our interests to do our own manufacturing of the necessary chlorine? And are we anywhere close to that price point? You might not know the answer to that
Yeah, I
question
don't
right
know
now.
the price point, but the implications, it's safety again. Now you're kind of delving into the chemical manufacturing and, you know, having to make sure that you're meeting all those safety requirements and having to properly train staff.
Oh,
So
Sure, there
yeah,
would
quite a
be-
bit goes into that as well.
Right,
But chlorine generation is one of those things that other plants do,
right,
and we can really
right.
look into. So it's that combination of, as Jose said, safety, reliability, and cost. And where is the confluence to hit that sweet spot for CSIP?
And then
And-
one final question, would it be worthwhile looking around the county for other users of liquefied chlorine, if there are any, and seeing if we can make a buying consortium that might be able to influence
Good
pricing?
question. Yeah. So there is the Bay Area Chemical Consortium, and we did look into that option, and they're actually on average like 11 to 15% higher cost.
Oh, wow.
Just for
Their
chlorine.
negotiators are doing a good
Yeah,
job.
so, and we've even looked into it for AWPF because we have quite a bit of chemical there. And I think every chemical contract we had, we were getting a better deal on our own through the bidding process than through the chemical consortium.
Maybe we ought to talk with some of the other local agencies and bring in a bigger quantity and do an even better job with our negotiations. But anyway, just an idea.
All right,
I'll move approval.
okay, thank you very much. We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 4-0. Thank you very much. And we'll go to Mr. Thompson for item 9, Black and Beach and the master plan upgrade.
All right. Good afternoon, committee members, and Happy New Year. I am your Director of Engineering, Matt Thompson. I'm pleased to present you an item that should be very important for the future of Monterey One Water. We are requesting your approval to begin preparing a master plan for a comprehensive upgrade of the regional treatment plant. The RTP, as we commonly call it, is the heart of Monterey One Water's wastewater system and what enables us to provide wastewater treatment and water recycling services for our various member agencies. The RTP is 34 years old now, and there are several reasons why we should begin planning for a major upgrade. Many treatment components have reached the end of useful life, and some of them are actually in danger of failing. The plant is not very energy efficient. With the rising cost and reduced reliability of electrical power, we need to improve electrical efficiency. We also should improve the quality of water produced by the RTP and thus improve efficiency and productivity of our water recycling operations. The RTP was originally designed to treat just municipal wastewater, but is now being used to treat a variety of wastewater types. We need to improve the performance and resilience of our biological treatment process to continue effectively treating these various wastewaters. Water quality regulations are evolving and will likely require us to remove nutrients such as ammonia and phosphorus from our wastewater stream in the future. We also have a need to remove nutrients to better protect the advanced water purification facility. The existing RTP was not designed to remove nutrients, so we ought to start planning to upgrade to a new nutrient removal process. A comprehensive upgrade of the regional treatment plant will be an expensive and time-consuming task. We are currently planning or constructing many other improvements to the wastewater system, such as expanding renewable energy production, improving electrical reliability, and upgrading aging sewage pump stations. Some of these projects are quite urgent and must be completed before we get into construction of the RTP upgrade. The upgrade will be debt financed, and it will likely take many years to secure this financing. So although construction of the upgrade will not likely begin for many years, we need to start the process by hiring a professional engineering firm with extensive experience in planning, design, and construction of wastewater treatment plants to help us develop a well thought out master plan. The engineering firm will guide us through a detailed evaluation of various treatment alternatives. They will clearly recommend a particular treatment process based on life cycle cost and long-term treatment performance. The cost estimate for the recommended project will be the basis of our financial planning. The master plan will also be the basis of subsequent design efforts and environmental review and permitting. We have a lot of work ahead. You may recall the board of directors approved budget for a master plan as part of the last budget cycle. In September, we requested proposals from various engineering firms to prepare a master plan. In November, 3 major reputable engineering firms submitted proposals. A committee of staff from various departments independently reviewed and ranked the proposals. All 3 engineering firms are well qualified, but the consensus of the selection committee is that Black & Veatch is the most qualified and best fit for preparation of our master plan. Black & Veatch is an international engineering firm with a lot of wastewater expertise and project experience. They have engineers in all the disciplines that are typically involved in a major wastewater treatment plant upgrade, and they understand the constraints of constructing such a large and complex project. Black & Veatch is also very good at finding innovative ways to minimize project cost. Black & Veatch's proposed fee to complete the master plan is $601,023. Black & Veatch is prepared to begin work immediately after approval and will complete the master plan in January 2026. We will present the master plan to this committee and the full board after completion. At this point, I recommend the committee recommend to the board to authorize the general manager, executive officer to enter a professional services agreement with Black & Veatch for preparation of the master plan for an amount not to exceed $601,023. Thank you. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Director Moore?
So you mentioned pump stations. Will the scope of work go beyond just the plant and include pump stations and the force main? Or is that outside their current scope of work?
So the short answer is no, that this will be limited to the treatment plant only.
Okay.
However, I'm challenging this engineering firm to look at our system holistically. And it may require some minor improvements to some of the some of the larger, more major pump stations that feed into the plant. To deal with, we have sludge age. I mean, we have sewage age issues, some septicity issues. And so I have ideas to go out into the pump stations to control septicity to improve treatment at the treatment plant.
Okay, so I'll just say, and you'll probably hear me say this again, I'm a bit concerned about sea level rise, in particular the Seaside Pump Station. And at some point soon, I think we need a master plan for routing the force main away from parts of the coast that are likely to be problematic in a storm or whatever in the next, however long it takes to plan for that. And as I've said before, last I checked, nobody has manufactured another acre of California land in the last 100 years or so. Well, okay, maybe there was a slide down in Big Sur where they manufactured a few, but we can't count on that. So my point is, land and easements aren't going to get any cheaper or easier to get for an inland route around. So that's number one. Number two, you mentioned a number of important things that we need to accomplish in a renewed plant. For instance, reduction in potassium and certain other things coming out of the main treatment process going into CSIP and Pure Water Monterey. Those improvements will certainly benefit CSIP and they will certainly benefit Pure Water Monterey and the Monterey Peninsulas, but they will not benefit Salinas, Baranda, or Marina Coast. So as part of this scope of work to the extent you can. I think those other specific funds need to have some level of financial participation in this revision and renewal of this, at least for the additional benefits that are specific to them. And I don't know how you need some engineers or financial people or whatever to source that out so that it's fair. I'm not asking for anything that would be unfair to any of the various funds involved, but we don't want to burden some folks with costs that really aren't bringing them anything. And I
So
Yeah,
if
go
I can
ahead.
interject,
Sure.
some of them might be unfunded mandates as far as new regulatory requirements to take away some of the nutrients. So that would be borne by everybody because it would be regulatory.
Or we send it to the unfunders, send them a bill at least. Even, well, I think they're in Sacramento. I think that was it, but I might have one more, but go to my colleagues.
Okay. Anybody? Director Rubio?
So in terms of the nutrients, like you mentioned phosphorus, I would think, isn't there already kind of a regulation set by NPDES in terms of like phosphorus, like going out the outfall because of algae blooms and whatnot? Don't we already have those regulations already set in place, or?
So our discharge of treated wastewater to the Pacific Ocean is governed by a regulatory document called the Ocean Plan. And for many decades, the Ocean Plan has not required nutrient removal. So most coastal plants in California do not have nutrient removal processes. But the state of California is signaling concerns about the contribution of nutrients from wastewater plants, especially in Southern California, contributing to what they call hypoxia and ocean acidification. And so they are suggesting that they're going to require coastal plants to move towards nutrient removal. We're seeing indications of it in the San Francisco Bay Area. That is not a direct discharge to the ocean. It's more of an enclosed bay. But that Regional Water Quality Control Board recently ordered every single plant in the San Francisco Bay that discharges to that bay to remove nutrients. So we're monitoring the trends in the regulations. And I figure if we launch into a major master plan for a major upgrade that's going to have a useful life of 30 to 40 years, it's going to be prudent for us to pay attention to those regulatory trends. And it's not all that difficult to make it a nutrient removal process. We're likely to move towards a higher performance type of treatment called activated sludge. And you basically tweak the activated sludge process to achieve nutrient removal. So it's my opinion. This is sort of an emerging concern, but something we'll certainly be monitoring and reporting back to you all in the coming years.
But Ken, I think exactly what you said, shouldn't we be worried about algae blooms and this and that? That's sort of why the regional board and the state board are going this direction. Thus far, the amount of nutrients that we do discharge is compliant with the ocean plan as it sits today, but it could be better. And taking that San Francisco Bay regulation as a model, and you do that throughout the whole state, that's a significant cost to everyone. In fact, we will see a number of lawsuits coming out of the treatment plants in the San Francisco Bay region because the nexus to the need for that particular area for water quality issues, as you're alluding to, is potentially not as great. But I do tend to agree with Matt when we're discharging into the ocean, it's a different animal. And we should at least be prepared for it, if nothing else.
So regardless, it's going to come. And
Yes.
we just got to prepare for it, and soon, maybe sooner than later, especially when it comes to nutrients. Sounds like.
Yeah, but I think it's a great question in terms of its master plan. Is oftentimes master plans lay out a number of projects over the next 10 years. And, Matt and I've talked a little bit is maybe this one could be a little different. Obviously, there's things we have to replace. You know, when we take you out there and you shove your hand into concrete and can pull stuff out, that needs to be replaced. But there could be triggers within the master plan when a regulation is promulgated to go, oh, now we need to go down this path. Or, you know, energy costs go up by 300%. Well, that's a trigger. Maybe we go down that path. So it's going to be an interesting project. And as Matt said, I think critical to this agency and an inflection point on how we have to finance it and how we're going to work around this.
Yeah, I know just from personal experience that CSUMB, one of the guys there, he's working on bioreactors to, you know, take in tailwater out of ditches and basically through various strains of bacteria, basically mitigating certain nutrients. So it's interesting.
Director Moore.
So correct me if I'm wrong, and this again is just for the public who might not be familiar with this. You laid out a process where we didn't get competitive dollar bids because this is a consulting contract, not a construction contract. Is that correct?
Yes, to be clear, this is a professional service. And in California, procurement of professional services is based on qualifications.
You make your
So-
choice based on qualifications, then you negotiate with the chosen party over what the costs are, and you've done that, and that's what's reflected here.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and check with the public online to see if anyone wishes to comment on this item or in the audience. This is item 9, and bring it back to the committee for action discussion.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I will just say that brief comment. I'm glad to see this. I know that I did my first tour a few years ago. There's definitely some needs in the RTP. So, but you guys are doing a great job keeping it all working well, but certainly could be improved. And it's always good to have a nice plan to refer to and not just kind of go around to the next emergency and, you know, kind of chasing your tail forever. So we appreciate it. I'll take a voice vote on this since we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're all the way on to 10, item 10. And Mr. Thompson will continue. This is the Energia Technologies Services Agreement.
All right, good afternoon again, committee members. I'm Director of Engineering, Matt Thompson. Please go ahead, Chai. The bioenergy company Energia is currently working at the regional treatment plant to construct new mixers in our anaerobic digesters and install a food waste receiving station. This will enable our plant to begin receiving tanker truckloads of food waste slurry and convert it into valuable biogas. This is an important part of our renewable energy program. When Energia originally proposed to design and build these improvements in late 2022, they identified a small open area near the back of the plant for the food waste receiving station. That area is shown here in red on the right side of this exhibit. Later, when we were further along in the design process, it became apparent this location is not ideal. This location is better suited for other improvements needed to accommodate additional biogas production, and the location is difficult for tanker trucks to enter and exit. Fortunately, due to recent demolition of some unused equipment, a good space became available near the trickling filters. This space, highlighted here in yellow on the left side of this exhibit, is ideal for the station because tanker trucks can easily drive through and drop off their food waste slurry. Kind of like a fast food restaurant in reverse, I guess.
Keep going.
So you may
supersize.
So you may recall, back in July, I had requested your approval for Energia to do the additional engineering work needed to relocate the food station to this location. Energia has since completed the engineering with a lot of input from our staff. The new location will require physical changes, including demolition of existing concrete slabs, widening of access roads, new curb and gutter, and some relocation of existing utilities. Energia's proposed cost for this additional construction work is $835,918. If approved, Energia is prepared to begin work right away. The project should be complete and operational by May. I recommend your committee recommend to the board approval of an amendment to our energy services agreement with Energia for additional construction services for an amount not to exceed $835,918. New revenue from tipping fees for receiving food waste will offset this cost over time. Thank you. I'd be glad to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any committee questions on this item? Yes, Director Moore.
So you did indicate that some of this cost will be mitigated by tipping fees over time. Can you give us a sense of what period of time? Is this 3 millennia or is this 3 weeks or something in between?
Yes, you
In
will
between.
recall- yeah, you will recall that we have also contracted with Energia to provide services for the procurement of food waste slurry and operation of this food waste receiving station. That agreement requires Energia to ramp up the procurement of food waste slurry such that new revenue from tipping fees for food waste slurry will exceed $1 million a year within 18 months. So the short answer is that within about a year and a half, we should be able to essentially pay back the additional cost of this construction work. Now, granted, this is part of a larger construction project, but the tipping fees is just part of the new revenues. Again, this food waste slurry will boost our production of valuable biogas. And in the long term, if we do it right, we sell that renewable natural gas. Those are additional significant revenues
Okay.
that will help to pay back all of this collection of infrastructure within a couple of years,
Thank you very much.
few years.
Any other questions? Director Urbina.
So in terms of the additional costs, a lot, is there, I mean, in terms of the additional costs, I mean, you're already going to have to build on the previous site, but then are they accounting for demoing?
That's right.
Basically, is a lot of that demo?
And piping.
I want to be clear, we accounted for all of the work that we anticipated they would do at the original location. So they gave us a credit for what they were planning to do there. The additional $835,000 in change of work is clearly for additional work that was above and beyond their original construction contract. So all the concrete demolition, et cetera, that I listed, additional curb and gutter, widened access roads, et cetera, that's all very clearly above and beyond what we originally contracted them to do.
Well, the original location was dirt. And so there was not a whole lot of fees there, but we also have to get now the slurry to a different location within the building. And so that's taken some extra piping, et cetera.
Gotcha.
Director Moore.
So when we, excuse me, when we hire new employees, we do a background check, do we not?
Yes.
And our,
I was before they did background checks.
yeah, we hired the general manager before background checks. Energia is going to be putting some of their own employees on site to operate this. Is that correct?
Yes, they will.
Are we going to be doing background checks on them? Or are we relying on Energia?
This is a contract. This will be a contract employee. I don't see us actually do a background check as if it were our employee, but Energia has certainly been very cooperative And I understand your concern. I believe that if we wanted to vet the person who they bring out to operate this food waste receiving station, they would be amenable to.
So at this point, we are not doing a background check on the contract employees. That is under the auspices of the contract with Energia of who they have to provide to us, and that we have a say in, hey, get out of here, we'll get someone else. There are statements within the services agreement that allow that. Just like with any contract with, we have contractors on site right now. We don't do background checks on them and so on down the line.
So some, maybe this is, well, not maybe, this is certainly, I think, a policy question for the board as to whether or not folks that we have coming onto our arguably extremely critical bit of infrastructure that serves a large chunk of Monterey County, that even contract employees, we do our own background check on, regardless of what the contractor does with respect to background checks. Maybe I'm just getting paranoid about coming into a period of time in this century, in this decade, when China might decide to go to war over Taiwan. And I'm sorry, but we're seeing similar sorts of things happening in Ukraine, where Ukrainian citizens are being either co-opted because they have family in Russia, or they're being paid to damage infrastructure. And certainly what I know about how China views hybrid warfare, that would be something that they would in all likelihood try and do, to shut down critical infrastructure anywhere they can get their hands on in the United States. So I certainly encourage you to ask the board, as a matter of policy, whether we should take that on. I realize there'd be a little additional cost to it, and its background checks are not perfect, but at least it would be another minor line of defense.
But I don't know if this will give you some sort of comfort, but the person from Energia would not be operating any of the facility. The only thing they would be operating is the truckers coming in and hooking up and transferring the slurry into a tank. So when it goes from the tank into our digesters, it would be run by Jose's folks, who are the operators. So, but if they're on site, I guess that's.
They're on site, yeah.
Well, we can bring this up to the board as a whole, and looking at background checks, and to what degree? I mean, is it contract employees that will be there, 5 days a week versus, well, I guess contractors are there 5 days a week for some period of time, or the haulers that do drive on our site. So that's a broad question.
Yes.
That has a lot of implications. So we can
Yes.
certainly have that discussion with the board.
Would encourage that. Thank you.
I don't believe we've done background checks on any board members.
And you probably should.
Okay, we'll go ahead and take it out to the public for comment.
Could I just provide
Oh, yes.
one thought? I mean, I think it's a discussion, and we're getting maybe a little bit off topic, and
Right.
and it might be agendized. I just think as an alternative, we might want to consider some kind of supervision of an employee while contractors are on site, as an alternative. Because I'm even thinking of military installations. Not everybody that comes onto a military installation has a background check.
But sometimes they have to be escorted at all
That's correct.
times
That's
by
correct.
someone who has had a background
Yeah,
check, right?
yeah. So just throwing that out there while
Yeah.
while the thoughts there.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, no, looks like nobody from the public here would like to speak. Anyone online on this item 10, Energia contract? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board
Move
for action.
approval?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Looks like a good deal to me. We're gonna make the money back and get some more important work done here and use grant funds, so definitely supportive. I'll call for a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes 4-0. Passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Move on to item 11. And now we'll have Mr. Thompson again.
All right, this next item is to request your approval for extension of program management services for Pure Water Monterey. This is a large and complex infrastructure system that requires oversight and control by a competent program manager. Dave Lindau of the engineering firm GHD has successfully filled this role for our agency since 2017. Expansion of Pure Water Monterey is underway and includes two major construction projects that will be completed by the end of this year. The first one is the Advanced Water Purification Facility expansion, and the second is what we call Injection Wells Phase 4, which includes two new deep injection wells and a major pipeline to connect with the existing well field. We need to amend our agreement with GHD to continue providing various program management services for the next 11 months until the two projects are commissioned and closed out. An additional $561,573 is needed for program management tasks. Dave Lindau will continue to lead Pure Water expansion for an average of 3 to 4 days per week. An additional $89,826 is also needed for GHD to update the asset management and fiscal sustainability plan to include the new infrastructure additions. This plan is required by the agencies that funded Pure Water Monterey and is an important tool for us to continue taking good care of this important infrastructure well into the future. Finally, GHD has been providing program management services beyond their previously authorized budget since the end of August. So an additional $196,784 is added to cover GHD's previous 5 months of effort. So the total amount of the requested amendment is $848,183. I recommend that the board approve an amendment to the professional services agreement with GHD for this total amount. This should be GHD's final budget amendment. This expense will be reimbursable through the excellent package of grants and loans our agency received for Pure Water Monterey. Thank you. I'm glad to take questions.
Thank you very much. Any board member, committee member questions on this item? Okay. We'll take it out to the public real quick and see if anyone online would like to comment on item 11, the GHD contract extension. And also in chambers. Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Obviously, we want GHD to complete this mission, so certainly entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll take a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, passes 4-0. Thank you very much. This will be great. All right. Moving on to item 12. This is 3 electric vans from Watsonville Ford, and I will look to Mr. Harris.
Good afternoon, Chairman Smith and members of the committee. I'm Darrell Harris, Utilities and Maintenance Manager. M1W operates and maintains pump stations, conveyance mains, the regional treatment plant, Salinas Valley Reclamation Facility, the Castroville Seawater Intrusion Program, Salinas River Diversion Facility, and the Advanced Water Purification Facility and associated injection well facilities. We use service trucks to perform a scheduled maintenance as well as corrective and emergency repairs for M1W assets and contracted member entity assets. In 2024, M1W replaced 3 service trucks that had exceeded their useful life. To meet California regulations pertaining to zero-emission vehicles, or ZEVs, beginning in 2024, M1W must purchase 50% zero-emission vehicles to assist in reducing air emissions. Therefore, M1W advertised for 3 zero-emission vehicle service vans in the Monterey Herald on 11/21 and 11/26/2024. On December 6, 2024 M1W received two sealed bids, Watsonville Ford and Mission Valley Ford truck sales. Ford Pro Services will provide a charging station with each vehicle at no cost. The lowest bidder was Watsonville Ford in the amount of $173,242.80 with a delivery date of 4 to 6 months after contract award. This purchase is included in the fiscal year 24-25 budget. Staff asked that the Recycled Water Committee recommend that the board award a contract to Watsonville Ford authorizing the purchase of 3 electric service vans in the not to exceed amount of $173,242.80. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Committee member questions. Thank you for the report. Item 12, Director Williamson.
Is there efforts going into get rebates, particularly from 3CE in relation to the vehicles?
At this time, I don't think there is, I don't know if
I think Rachel can probably help us with that one.
So yes, we are monitoring those. They don't always apply to the types of vehicles we are pursuing, or the percentage needed to pursue perhaps like electrical installation for charging, but we are constantly monitoring it with Daryl and his team as opportunities come about from both 3CE, MBARD. There are a few actually local entities or districts that offer clean energy.
Resources. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other comments? Yes.
So-
Director Rubino.
Part of that plan was, I'm not sure if it's directed at governmental agencies, but was 50 vehicles or more was part of this plan. Is that, how many vehicles do we have?
yeah, so it's
Monterey one.
50% of any new purchase vehicles that's over 8,500 GVW. So for every service truck that we buy that's combustion engine, you have to match that purchase with a zero emission vehicle.
How many vehicles do we have total? Do you know?
Oh,
You can get back to it.
yeah, I can get back to you on that one.
Okay. I'll go ahead and take it out to the public to see if there's any comment on item 12. These are the 3 new electric service vans. Not seeing anyone wishing to make a comment. Bring it back to the board for action.
Move approval.
Second.
Yeah, I'll have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 4-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. And on to the final item for the day. This is item 13. Mr. Shuto, consider approval of amending the short-term outfall capacity lease agreement.
Thank you, Chair Smith. So, and we also have some people from Cal-Am here, Josh and Tim, that can answer any questions about this item as well. As you know, a test slant well was installed by Cal-Am back in like 2014-ish. I know our first agreement with them was in December of 2014 that allowed the water out of the test slant well to dump right into our outfall and be discharged. It was predominantly seawater, so there was no issue. The regional board okayed it back, over 10 years ago now. We have gone through a series of amendments. Back in 2021, we established a new agreement. And so all this is an amendment to that 2021 agreement that will continue to allow Cal-Am to discharge their slant well pumping into our outfall for discharge. The term of this is for 2 years, so this goes through 2027, March 24th, 2027. And there is an annual payment from Cal-Am to us about a little under $21,000. Once again, this has been in effect for 10 years now, and we're looking at another 2 years. So we would certainly like the committee to recommend to the board approval of this amendment to allow the slant well to continue operating and discharging to our outfall, and Cal-Am to pay the agency $20,780 per year. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that, or if maybe just if questions come up, there's no need, don't worry about it. I can answer any questions.
Sure, committee member questions on, thank you, Mr. Shudo, on item 13. Director Moore?
So a couple of things. First off, the current automatically renewed agreement sunsets on what, March 25th
Yes, yes,
of this year?
yes, 24th, yeah.
So we have a little bit of time.
We do. I chose to bring it to the January board meeting just to
Just in
give us
case.
runway.
Sure, sure. And due to holidays, vacations, et cetera, and getting this particular agenda just a few days ago, I haven't had time to consult with the folks I represent on this board. So at the moment, I will tell you I'm conflicted, probably likely to vote no, but that could change at the January board meeting, or if it gets postponed to the February board meeting, that could change depending both on arguments that I hear from Cal-Am, on other supporters, and arguments I hear from my own board and staff at Marina Coast. Here's my current issue. I've always had a problem with the test well discharging to the ocean because it's discharging a mixture of salt water and groundwater from the Salinas Valley groundwater basin. The pumping results that Cal-Am has very nicely provided to the public demonstrates that whenever they turn on that well and operate it for any extended length of time, it actually introduces seawater intrusion into at least some area around that test slant well, which seems to me to be a big red flag, number one. Number two, the component of what is being pumped from that test well and then discharged into the ocean includes 80 to 90% potable Salinas Valley groundwater that's just being dumped uselessly into the ocean. So the question in my mind is, has this test well operated long enough for close to 10 years to provide the necessary data to support any reasonable conclusions? And should it, for the moment, no longer be discharging into the ocean? And it sounds from the staff report as though the Regional Water Quality Control Board would struggle with exactly that question as to whether or not to renew a permit on this score. So if you want to address some of those items, I'm happy to listen.
So actually, that's one of the reasons that I'm glad Cal-Am's here, because I don't know how much it's been operating over the last few years. That for a while there, I knew it had stopped operating.
Right.
In terms of the discharge to the ocean of a combined ocean water and Salinas Valley Basin, that's true. That has been true since day one. I certainly understand your perspective, Director Moore, and the potential impacts to Marina Coast Water District. In terms of the regional board, they have approved it, so that's on them for now. If they choose not to, obviously we would revisit it and disconnect. But as we sit here, I look at it as it's an existing system that does have a permit that we have an existing agreement with. In terms of the potential impacts on the Salinas Valley Basin, I did not consider that when looking at the contractual agreement here.
So there was something in the contract that said we'll pursue further approval from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I'm looking for that particular, so I can point you in the right direction.
So, well, there's certainly the indemnification section that has something on it.
Oh, 3.4.
Yeah.
So it says the agreement is subject to the Regional Water Quality Control Board continued approval, whatever that means.
Yes.
And it sounds like we're supposed to do some work in pursuit of that continued approval, which I presume is why at least one of the reasons why CalAm would be paying us some $20,000 a year.
Well, actually, so there is in terms of the $20,000 a year, a lot of it is, and it's outlined in the back here. It talks about a number of things. Certainly the NPDS reporting is part of that, as well as control room operations, source control, things like that. In reference to the NPDS requirements, we have a valid NPDS permit as we speak that acknowledges this. So if and when, and I don't know when when we're next up.
For the permit,
Yeah.
for the expansion, for the extraction well or the?
No, just for our NPDS permit for the treatment plant for discharge into the outfall. Yeah, come on up. Because that's, as long as we have our NPDS permit that acknowledges this, we're fine. And that's what
Yeah, the paragraph would seem to indicate it might be expiring, say, with the expiration of this agreement.
This is Allison MMRM, principal engineer. Just sorry to correct you, Paul, but our permit for discharges through our outfall is regulated through the overall sort of RTP NPDS permit, which
Right.
by the way was just posted this past week. We got it
That's what
approved
we're
in
doing, yeah.
December, successfully approved in December, and it's been posted on the Regional Water Quality Control Board website. You can look it up there. But this actual discharge is regulated through a general permit. And the regional board recently adopted a new general permit and wrote a letter saying that that new general permit applies to this discharge. And it's very clear that it applies to both discharge of shallow groundwater and this type of discharge applies.
So it is valid at this point.
Mhm.
And I thought that there was a reference in our NPDS to that general permit. Is that not the case? There's no nexus between the two?
No, from the beginning, they determined that this type of discharge is, it's just such a low volume and low risk
Okay.
that it applies under this general permit for this type of discharge just applies under that general permit rather than our NPDS permit.
So provision 3.4 in the agreement looks like it might be kind of legacy stuff.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And
that's-
we looked at, Jim Gilpin, I think is on the line also, but he looked at this and said that the language was adequate, even though the regional board now has a new version of that general permit that's listed in 3.4.
And that's exactly what I was referencing was 3.4.
And then would it be possible in this agreement, should we want it or should any of our member agencies want it, to have permission to take our own samples? I'm not sure that's part of this agreement.
I can certainly look at that.
Certainly that would be helpful.
So that is on the former CMEX property,
Right.
right down there. How do we access that nowadays? Because last time I accessed it, it was a safety issue where you had to be escorted and all that. I'm not sure if we're still in that, but we can certainly look in that. And when it comes to the board, be more prepared for that
Okay.
question.
I'm going to go ahead and take it out to the public, get the public comment on the item number 13. And I see representatives of CalAm here, so I'll go ahead and recognize those members first. And anyone online wishing to speak on the CalAm item, please raise your hand.
Right. Good afternoon, Chair and board members. I'm Tim O'Halloran. I'm the engineering manager for CalAm. And just a few things on the slant well. So it's operated like in a maintenance mode now. So it's operated 4 hours per month, just to maintain the well. We do conductivity logging of the well and water level, groundwater level. But other than that, that's kind of a de minimis operation. Was there any other questions you had for CalAm.
Director Moore, would you like?
So with respect to conduct, well, of course, level measurement you can do continuously even when you're not pumping. What about the conductivity measurement? Do you do that continuously even when you're not pumping?
I believe we do, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And anyone online wishing to speak?
I have a quick
Question for CalAm, Director Rubino.
So in terms of what Director Moore was alluding to was part of the groundwater, fresh groundwater getting mixed in. Do you guys monitor that in terms of the mixture levels, salt
Yeah.
water of or parts per million of
Yeah,
salts?
it's my understanding it's somewhere 5 to 10% groundwater, and the rest is ocean water.
And that isn't that a calculation based on the conductivity and the changes over time of the conductivity? Because you're going to see the differences.
Right.
All right, and seeing no further public comment, I'll bring it back to the board for further discussion / action on the item.
Move to approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I'll just speak to, I hear your concerns and I'm open to further discussion. I think one of my major concerns is it's there. We have to be able to find a way of maintaining it. And so I don't want to disrupt the flow of something that's already been approved and it's in place. So I just want to be mindful of the system and but I'm open to further dialogue and what's presented to the board. So for now, I'll go ahead and support the motion and look forward to the discussion at the board meeting.
Great comment. Mayor, yes, Director Moore.
So I was just going to say, since all of us will get a second bite at this apple when we get to the board meeting, assuming that this committee makes a recommendation, I think I'm going to abstain until I get more guidance and hear more arguments from the various sides on this between now and the board meeting.
Sounds great. Okay, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, Chai.
Veranda,
Yes.
Marina Coast,
Abstain.
Monterey,
Yes.
Pacific Grove.
Aye.
Motion carries 3 yes, 1 abstention and 1 absent.
Okay, so that brings us to staff reports. Item 14, Mr. Shudo.
Thank you, Chair Smith. So happy New Year. And I just wanted to highlight, I sent an email to the board on an incident that occurred over at the Seaside Pump Station on January 4th, plus or minus. Everything's handled, staff is doing a great job, but it is of significance. I just wanted you to know it. And I was hoping Tammy and actually Jose and Daryl could provide some detail on what happened, how we rectified it, and what the plan is moving forward.
Okay, I'll go ahead and defer to Daryl and provide any backup. So you guys are all aware we're off of utility power and we're on at the location. We have 2 generators, emergency generators. Well, one powered up, we had it running, and then there was a coolant leak. And then we had to go to generator number 2. And when we were going back to generator number 1, there was an issue. Make a long story short, you've got to have redundancy on all your assets when you're dealing with wastewater that's going to continue to flow. So Daryl's team rented a 1,000 kilowatt generator. And so we have that on site. And actually we have generator number 1, which is powering the site now. Number 2, we're still troubleshooting. There's some issues that we're, I think, waiting for parts on. And so our redundancy is the rented trailer mounted generator. And then his team, his maintenance folks out in the field, they also set up and staged a bypass just in case, in the unlikely event that we would lose both of those. There is a bypass with not only a 10-inch but a 6-inch pump that will handle all the flows and go around. So we basically have 3 ways to manage that station. And so, Gerald, if you could tell us what the fix is or where we are in the repair.
Yeah, so this here was a failure of the enclosure around the bus duct that shorted out the bus duct. So we removed the bus duct. PG&E tested their transformer and said that it's good to re-energize. But to replace the bus duct, it's an 18-week lead time to purchase new bus duct. This is part of the station upgrade already for a new transformer and new bus duct that's already ordered by the contractor who's doing that work. But as a temporary fix, PG&E is allowing us to run cable tray and run cables busing from the transformer to the switchgear, which we have procured. The cable should be hitting the ground here tomorrow. Cable trays is on site right now, and that'll be getting it put in place tomorrow as well. And we will work through the weekend to get the cables ran and tied back in the PG&E transformer, and hopefully be energizing by Tuesday, Wednesday next week.
I see Mr. McCullough online, so I'll recognize him at this time.
I think, yeah, I believe Mike wants to talk a little bit more about this pump station and potential getting eyes on it.
Okay. Mike, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. We're gonna send out an email from Chai to see if any of the board members want to go and have a site visit to the Seaside Pump Station. We'll make sure everybody has the right safety equipment, and we will not do it in accordance to the Brown Act. So we'll have to stagger it so we don't have multiple people there at one time. But if you want to see it, we can make sure that you can take a look at what Daryl just described.
Thank you. Any
Wanna
further
add-
staff reports?
I want to add to that in that Daryl, with his connections in the industry, was able to secure and get a hold of that bus duct. You know, you just can't pick up the phone and get something that normally takes 18 weeks. So really appreciate him and his team working around the clock. We also have a maintenance mechanic inspecting the location every 8 hours around the clock. And we have the operations control room, which is closely monitoring the SEP station just in case that there is an issue. So really appreciate that. Do you have any more? I've got a couple.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is, so in January, we started our biosolids management differently than we've done in the past. We used to transfer it over to region, and now what we're doing is we have a contractor and a contract in place that they come and pick up truckloads, and so we still are allowed to put a small portion over to next door. But so that's exciting. We're working on that. And then right now we're in maintenance as far as the SVRP. Jose's team and contractors, they're cleaning the pond because usually there's silt or whatever at the bottom of the pond. They're cleaning that out. They should be finished. We'll also have our contractor on site, Telstar, who does everything that needs to happen as far as the chlorine building and replacing items. So that's going on. You guys are aware of the weather and it's really nice. And so the growers are taking some water, and of course all the water is well water. And so we've modified our water order app to give them the how much water is available, so they will be seeing if water's not available and then what hours they can take water. So we hope to be back online the very end of this month, but we're very much aware that there's no rain in the forecast. The other thing that we already talked about, I've got all three of them. So thank you. And I just want to thank the team for all of these unexpected. I keep telling my management, you know, a person could go their entire career and not have the issues that we've had to deal with in the last 3 years, from the transformer blowing up to the floods to it's just amazing what all they have done and handled. So I'm very proud of the team.
Yes. Sorry, Director Moore has a question.
So with respect to the new biosolids management, can any of the biosolids be added to the food waste, or is it spent in terms of producing more biogas?
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be an option.
It's essentially inert. I mean,
Yeah.
this is.
It's been digested
It's
at
been
that point.
digested.
been
so we can
digested
extract
completely.
As much energy out of it as we
Can.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to point out that Mr. Gilpin has his hand up, so you may have a staff
I
report
know.
as well.
I knew that. Director Williamson?
So before it was going, or all of it was going
All of it.
to
Regen.
the waste manager. So why is having a truck come better than having it go to the
The
waste manager?
regulations say that the regen can no longer take it. In fact, they used, what was the year that they used?
2014.
2014. So we're allowed a percentage of what we sent in 2014. And so I think it's right at
25%.
5%,
47 tons.
1,000, yeah. And so we still are able to send that over, but the landfills are no longer taking it. Can take it.
Where's it getting trucked to?
Well, there's two
Is it-
options and I'll go ahead and let
Vern?
Jose talk.
Yeah, currently it's going to Lost Hills to Cinegro's Liberty composting facility. And then from there, they generate compost and distribute it. Once there's agriculture starts kicking off in the summer, they'll start taking it to different facilities for land application. But currently, because there isn't a demand for it, it's just going down to Liberty in Lost Hills.
Thank you. You were gonna.
So I just wanted to add, something you said, is that necessarily a good thing versus putting it next door? And of course, there's greenhouse gases to take it all the way to Lost Hills, et cetera. Hence the reason one of the things engineering will be doing is doing a more comprehensive biosolids plan. Like what can we do with it where we don't have to haul it all over the state and maybe have a useful product at the end of it? Obviously, that is expensive, takes some time, but it is maybe a better use of everyone's dollars.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilpin, I'm going to recognize you because I think you would like to say something.
I just wanted to provide a brief update. I know Director Moore has mentioned the cybersecurity threats, but there was an amendment to the Brown Act last year that would allow us to broaden our ability to use closed sessions to discuss cybersecurity threats, which now allows us to bring in other personnel from other, law enforcement or security agencies and or security consultants that we weren't allowed to do previously, but the legislature's clearly recognized the broadening threat on cybersecurity and has broadened that closed session. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCullough, would you like to
Good news.
speak again?
Yeah, I wanted to touch base on this wonderful topic of biosolids. The EPA just came out yesterday with a draft sewage sludge assessment for PFAS and PFOS. And basically what that assessment is, it reflects the agency's latest scientific understanding of the potential risks to human health and the environment posed by the presence of PFOA and PFOS in sewage sludge. And as we talked about, the methods of disposal, obviously it can be land applied, can go to the landfill, or also it can be incinerated. So, the public comment period is due to the EPA on March 17th, and we're working with our professional organizations to make sure that our interests are covered on this topic. So biosolids is happening.
Great. Thank you very much. I guess I'll bring it back to the committee for committee member reports, if any. Anyone have anything today? Yes, Director Moore.
So just want to say thank you to staff. We didn't have a December board meeting and some of your crises happened back in December. So very much appreciate your continued hard work keeping this system operating, as it is a critical bit of infrastructure, absolutely essential to survival of much of Monterey County. I would like to make a request, and I don't know whether my fellow board members would nod their heads and say yes, but in light of the fires in Southern California, I think maybe we ought to have a comprehensive assessment of the fire defensibility of all of our infrastructure, not just the plant, but this office here, and pump stations and any other piece of infrastructure that could be disrupted by some sort of major fire. Now, I know a lot of our infrastructure is either underground or perhaps away from a lot of flammable things on the one hand. On the other hand, last I checked, we have a few things that are somewhat flammable on our plant site. As in, I wouldn't want somebody to accidentally put a big ember through the side of a tank ejected from some explosion outside on the Armstrong Ranch or wherever. So I'd urge us to devote a little bit of time and effort to making sure we're well fireproofed.
Wasn't that last year we had the fire at the plant, Jose, that you guys responded to?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, we had the fire at
Oh, we had that one too.
Which of course requires water to fight. And if we had to make a choice of putting a pump into one of our digesters or to squirt sewage on a fire because well water, potable water, well, I have no idea what the implications of that would be to put out a fire. But at any rate, all of these are some of the issues sort of rattling around in the back of my mind as a consequence of what happened in Southern California. So,
Well, I think we would just direct staff to look into this and bring it back to the board since it's not on the agenda.
right, it's just an agenda request, that's all.
All right.
I'll just bring up something quickly, which is actually somewhat related. In the city of Monterey, we're going to be hosting some fire safety town hall as a result, because I'm not sure about you, but we're hearing from a lot of residents in regards to their concerns. It's very palpable. I mean, everybody's feeling the results and impacts of what's happening in LA right now and just on heightened alert. So it's good for us to strike while the iron's hot and just leverage the opportunity for us to help educate the public in regards to what's going on and get feedback and input in regards to how we might be able to do things better. And I bring this up in this setting to say that I think that there's an opportunity to partner with M1W in these conversations as well. Because you were bringing up China earlier, we're talking about natural disasters. We could talk about man-made disasters as well. And, an organization like M1W is a prime target for something like that to occur. So if something like that were to occur, what are the implications? How can we help educate the public in regards to being prepared for that type of scenario if that does come up? So, anyways, I'll try to talk to Paul more offline in regards to where the opportunities might be there, but it might seem like fear mongering a little bit, but there's realities in regards to national security and the implications associated with that. So
I agree, Director Williamson. We came up last night in our meeting. We're going to start looking at our local parks where we have a lot of trees. We do live in a forest, so there's a lot of trees and things that could catch fire, and there's homes right there, old wooden homes. So we're on heightened alert as well. We'll be looking for a consultant to help us with that too, and also with our fire department, Monterey Fire Department. So anyway, anyone have any additional comments? If not, thank you all for the work, and thanks everyone for tuning in and being here. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Stay tight.